now time for this week's Outside, and I'm delighted to say I'm joined by a very special guest. Now, he is one of the best-connected individuals in UK entertainment. We've been working with the likes of Cher, Sir Elton John and Lorraine Kelly. He's also now the chairman of the Intertalent Rights Group, where he runs the show Transforming Careers of Talented Individuals. I'm very pleased to say that I'm joined by Professor Jonathan Shalit. He's a talent manager and chairman of the Intertalent Rights Group. Jonathan, thank you very much for coming in to see me.
Thank you for having me.
It's amazing. So, Jonathan, talk to me about you then, because, you know, I've written to you years ago, actually, Jonathan. I think you did reply, actually, to be fair.
I always try. It's a golden rule. Here's a lesson for anybody. Yeah. Always reply to emails or letters.
Yeah.
In the old days, it was letters, now it's emails. But it's really important to be courteous, because you never know who might be the next superstar who reaches out to you.
Well, that's true. And, well, do you regret it?
And here you are, your own TV show.
teasing you. But I once went to a talent manager, and actually it was Paul Dudridge who's on. He's one of my... he does the World View for America. And I used to write to everybody and everything. And I said to him, what should I do? I've written to hundreds of people. I wrote to all of them, and I'd followed the chain always. And he told me that the best agent is a self-agent. So that's what I did. How did you get into the profession of being an agent?
I was looking at that the other day, because I'm just being honoured with a Lifetime Achievement Award in America, and I was thinking about my backstory and how it began. And I felt that probably it began back in the late 1960s when I met people like Lord Laurence Olivier, and then I went on to meet Princess Grace of Monaco.
Wow.
And people of that ilk, and that all happened because I was involved in theatre, and my grandmother was a patron of the arts. I used to work backstage at theatres and go backstage and meet lots of creative people. But that got the bug, and the bug of Hollywood, because Hollywood people used to come to the theatre we ran in Sussex, and it was an extremely exciting time hearing those great Hollywood stories.
Wow. So you say you ran a theatre in Sussex. Tell me a little bit more about
Well, I didn't run a theatre. My family ran a theatre, and I kind of worked around the back of the stage, and I kind of did errands and got pocket money for not doing much, but it felt very important being sort of a young teenager. But it was a theatre where the greatest actor ever, Lord Olivier, was the first director at Chichester Festival Theatre. And because he was the artistic director, he attracted great international stars to come and perform at this theatre. So I got to meet those great international stars. And in years to come, I used to go to the Royal National Theatre again and met great international stars. So I kind of had the buzz. And I remember one of the first concerts I ever saw, because the uniqueness of my company, Intertalent, is we cover all areas of entertainment. Most companies sort of specialise in one or two areas. We cover music, sport, social media, broadcasting, acting. Like last night, the Soap Awards, we have winners. We make shows with Discovery. We make shows with the BBC. We make shows with the ITV, NBC in America, Paramount Plus. We have big records around the world, as you've mentioned some of the names. Cher, Elton John we work with, for example. And the breadth is hugely exciting. And also, who you get to meet really exciting.
Yeah.
You know, when seeing the news report just then, I've literally met kings, queens, popes and presidents, which I kind of pinch myself even now when I think about it, because it's a great privilege to meet these kinds of people. And it's also a great privilege, and this is why I think trust is so important, that these people trust you with their careers. And if you represent someone, their livelihood is in your hands, because you're their ambassador to the world. So if their career falters or anything goes wrong and their earnings go down, that means they might not be able to pay their mortgage, their children's school fees, their alimony, their allowance to other members of their family, or whatever they have money to spend on it. And I've got to make sure that continues. I've also got to make sure they're represented right to the world. In many ways, like I'm an ambassador for a country, but I'm an ambassador for an individual, because particularly now with the way the whole media goes nuts the whole time, you've got to work very hard at protecting clients' reputations who very easily can eschew away from what they're trying to do and what they're trying to achieve.
Especially with the digital era. So literally nothing is deleted. Even if you said something years and years and years ago, people can bring these things out and affect your career.
Well, the problem with the digital era is when you just had print, newspapers thought about what they printed because they weren't true. There could be legal action, it could be very expensive. But online, people print anything. And, of course, what a lot of people do is they go anonymous and say things online about people, and then the story becomes the truth. Even if it's not the truth in the beginning, because it's down in the hemisphere, it then becomes a truth, which is never a truth in the beginning. So it's very difficult to manage social media.
Well, Eamon did make a quote, which he said, if you don't challenge a lie, it becomes the truth.
Eamon's absolutely right.
He's spot on, isn't it? If you do not challenge that lie, that becomes your truth. Who was the first person that you took on? Who was your first client then?
I mean, the very first client I took on, who wasn't even known, it was a singer called Matt Mudd. But through this young man, I learned how the record industry worked. And then off the back of Matt Mudd, I met other people. And then the big opportunity that took me globally was I really discovered an old American musician that led me to work with Sir George Beatles Martin, the guy who produced the Beatles, who signed them to EMI Records. And that led to Elton John, Cher, Sting, Carly Simon, a whole number of international stars that saw me at Carnegie Hall, New York, one evening. In fact, the night before this concert, I was at a dinner party celebrating the concert the next day, and this concert was arranged by Sting and his wife. It used to be an annual fundraiser for the Sting's Rainforest Foundation. And this is the dinner party, lit guest list. And it's a table probably no bigger than this. Obviously, I was there. Elton John, Sting, Pavarotti, Whitney Houston. Those are the ones I remember.
You must, like you said, you must pinch yourself and think, crikey, I'm surrounded by these absolute legends.
Yes, but ultimately, though, these legends might be legends to the world in terms of their stardom, but the ones that get to the top and stay there are really hard workers, are very serious about their work. And I mean, I remember, for example, recording Elton John with orchestras. Some of the young musicians turned up late, they weren't prepared. Elton came early, he'd rehearsed what he was doing, so as the clock started ticking with the orchestra present. You have to pay an orchestra whatever time you start, you have to pay them for the waiting time if you keep them waiting. But Elton knew that, and he literally had spent days and days rehearsing the music. And I later found out from his driver, to ensure Elton was on time, and a lot of stars are late, as you probably know, to make sure Elton was on time, his driver had gone round there the day before to check the traffic to make sure he knew the way and would not be late.
Yeah, and do you think that a lot of the biggest stars are actually really nice people? Because, you know, sometimes you see someone and you think, oh, they're amazing, and then you actually meet them and it's such a disappointment. In your view, most of the biggest stars are actually really good people, because I think if you're not nice to people, then in the end it will come back and bite you.
I think you're absolutely right, and I don't think you remain at the top unless you're fundamentally a nice person, because there are very few people who can't be replaced. So therefore, people don't like you, they'll look for a chance to bring you down. And I also think that when people say a star wasn't what I thought they were going to be, it's often the expectation, because normally a star becomes a star because of their talent, whatever it is, and you can love that talent. But then you build an expectation around that talent of what that person is or is not like. And people often are very different in the privacy of their own homes with their own friends and their families, and they are in their public perception. So often, and also when you go to approach big stars, a lot of big stars are shy. It might be a strange thing to say, but you think they're massive extroverts because they go on a stage and perform to millions of people on television around the world. But actually talking to them one-on-one, they can often not be that good a conversationalist to strangers. So I think it's about expectation. It's also the way you approach people and approach them the right way. And if you go up to a star in a restaurant having dinner with their partner and their children, and they don't give you massive warmth back, perhaps you're being rude, interrupting them. So I think it's all about expectation, and it's also about the way you treat them as well. Because big stars are all, just because they're big stars, doesn't mean to say you can interfere with them when they're off duty. And I think there's a way of approaching people and a way not to approach people.
If someone's watching or listening now and they're thinking, I'd love to get a talent agent, what would be the best route for them to do that? I mean, you know.
Well, I think you've got to email the talent agents you think are right to represent you. What I would say is send some content, not writing an email saying, hello, I want to do this, means nothing. Because the truth is, give an example of what you're doing. And the great thing about YouTube is you can create a clip on your iPhone of yourself doing something. And if you send that in, you may get picked up. Or if you want to be a broadcaster on radio of you speaking. But write in with a clip of you doing what you want to do. But the truth is, it's a high-risk, high-reward business. And that means most people don't succeed. Most people don't get to have an amazing career because there's simply too many people. So if you are going to try and be, if you like, in show business, in the talent space, and not go down a conventional career where you join a company with a qualification, you build yourself up so you get an upward trajectory of your career and the income, which means a guaranteed life. For most people, that's the best way to proceed. Being talent in the public eye can be very lonely and very difficult, and very few are going to make it.
It's a tough job, but someone's got to do it, Jonathan.
And you're doing it very well.
Thank you very much, Jonathan. And very briefly, tell us a bit about the award that you picked up. You're talking about an award.
I've had a few awards over the years. You know,
the latest
one of the great awards was getting an OBE at Buckingham Palace. And it was actually, the best bit of it was my mother. So my dear mother, who never really understood what I do and still doesn't, because my sister was a school teacher and a brilliant school teacher. My mother understood that. But being a talent agent and creating the opportunities I do for people, to go to Buckingham Palace and get an OBE from our late Queen was a pretty awesome experience for her. But this particular award coming up next year, it's going to be a Lifetime Achievement Award by someone in California, but it's not for me to say yet till they announce it.
OK. Well, Jonathan Shalit, thank you so much for joining me. It's really good to talk to you. That is, of course, the fabulous Jonathan Shalit. He's a talent manager and he's also a chairman of the Intertalent Rights Group.